Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. The Coal Miner's Girl. The coal dust clung stubbornly to everything in Mattawan, West Virginia. The air, the clothes, the skin. It settled in the lungs of every miner who toiled in the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the Appalachian hills. The year was 1921, and the coal camps were on edge, simmering with unrest as union organizers knocked on doors, whispering of strikes and demands for fair wages, safer conditions, and respect long denied. In a narrow cabin etched from weathered timber and faded from decades of harsh mountain weather, 16-year-old Clara Jennings sat by the window, tracing the jagged peaks of the hills with her eyes. The dawn light colored the world gray-blue, the usual silence wrapping the town in an uneasy stillness. She wore her brother's overalls, a shirt too big for her slim frame, and a cap pulled low over her hair that she had braided and tucked beneath it. Clara was not just playing dress-up, it was a disguise born of desperation and a fierce determination few of her neighbors understood. She was pretending to be her brother, Luke, a coal miner who had recently been blacklisted for speaking out against the company. Word of the strike had been met with violence before, and outsiders watched Mattawan warily. But Clara knew the truth. The miners and their families could not wait for change. It had to come now, or their lives would disappear in the endless churn of the mines, swallowed by darkness. And in a world where only men were heard, Clara would become Luke to fight alongside the others. Her journey into the depths of the coalfields had begun weeks earlier when she slipped away from her mother's watchful eyes. The family was poor, like so many others, sustained only by the meager wages from her father before his accident underground left him crippled and unable to work. Luke's voice had been silenced by the company men in shadows, and Clara refused to let her family fall further into the pit. As she walked toward the company store, clutching a small satchel where her thin hands were beginning to blister from labor, she felt the heavy weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders but found strength in the knowledge that she acted for those who could not afford to dream of change. In the mining camp, the men were gathering for a meeting, a hidden assembly in the back of an abandoned church that smelled of damp wood and forgotten prayers. The air was thick with tension, voices low but passionate as union organizer Bill Lawson spoke to the crowd. The time has come for the miners of Mattawan to stand united. We demand fair pay, safe conditions, an end to the company's tyranny. We cannot be pawns any longer. His words thundered through the room like a coming storm. Clara, sitting among them disguised as Luke, clenched her fists. The men around her spoke in gruff tones, nodding or shaking their heads, each carrying scars from countless battles with the coal companies. They were rough as the land they drilled into but bound by a shared hope, fragile yet fiery. Later, she found herself working side by side with other miners, feeling the suffocating darkness of the mine shafts seep into her bones. The air was thick with the smell of earth and sweat, and the constant threat of collapse shadowed every swing of the pickaxe. Her disguise was never secure, and her heart pounded with every glance that lingered too long. Her closest companion in the camp was Tom Gallagher, a strapping man with a kindness behind his steel-gray eyes. He carried the weight of a father who had died in the mines and talked often about a better future for his own boy. There was something in Tom's demeanor that made Clara want to reveal her true self, but fear kept her silent. Yet Tom was one of the few who offered protection, sensing without speaking that Luke was different from the others. As the strike deadline drew near, tensions escalated. Company spies prowled the streets, and Sheriff Sid Hatfield, known for his fierce loyalty to the miners, led carefully through the town's shadows. The company responded to the miners' demands with evictions and threats, driving families from their homes and cutting off supplies. One evening, as Clara returned from the mine, she found her mother sitting glumly outside the cabin, clutching a letter stained with tears and soot. It was from a neighbor, a frightened plea warning that the company was mobilizing private police, the infamous Baldwin Felts agents, armed and ruthless, intent on breaking the strike by any means necessary. The following days unraveled into a blur of whispered plans and frantic preparations. Clara baked what bread she could in a rusty oven, sharing small meals with the families clustered quietly, bracing for what was to come. She trained her voice to lower and her gait to match Luke's as best she could, mindful of the gaze of company men who began to grow suspicious. When the strike officially began, the camp became a battleground of wills. The once flourishing mine stood still, cranes idle against the horizon. The Baldwin Felts agents arrived under the cover of night, gun belts clinking, their blackened cars prowling the roads. The miners stood their ground, holding signs and banners, their voices a chorus of defiance. On a cold morning that smelled of smoke and despair, Clara found herself face to face with one of the agents, a brutal man named Collins who had grown angry at the growing resistance. His sneers were sharp, his eyes piercing through her carefully constructed mask. But she stared back with quiet courage, refusing to flinch. "Give it up, boy," he snarled. "This strike will break, and so will you." Something inside Clara snapped, not fear, but a fierce, raw courage. "If the company won't listen, we'll make them," she said, her voice steady. It startled Collins enough to prompt him to recoil, but Clara knew the danger was far from over. The struggle culminated on May 19, 1920, in what history would call the Matawan Massacre. Sheriff Sid Hatfield and his deputies confronted the Baldwin Felts agents in a tense standoff, gunfire erupting in the streets, echoing through the hollow hills. Lives were lost, miners, townspeople, and agents alike, painting the town with blood and sorrow. That day, Clara found herself amidst the chaos, her disguise slipping as fear and adrenaline mingled. She saw men fall, heard cries of pain, and witnessed the unyielding spirit of those who refused to surrender. Amid the gunfire, Tom protected her with desperate strength, his own injury a grim testament to the cost of rebellion. In the aftermath, the town mourned but also steeled its resolve. News of the massacre spread, shining a harsh light on the brutality endured by the miners. Clara, now revealed before those she had called comrades, faced confusion and betrayal, but also admiration for the bravery she had shown. Her mother embraced her, tears mixing with soot, while Luke, a surprisingly understanding brother, promised to fight alongside her for a better future. The Union's struggle was far from over, but the seed of change had been planted deep in the mountains. Clara helped organize meetings, speaking openly now without disguise, her youthful voice carrying the echoes of generations who had borne the Earth's darkest burden. For the coal miners, girls and boys of West Virginia, the fight was lifelong, but Clara's courage inspired many, her story a testament to the strength that blossoms in the face of oppression. In the years that followed, Matawan's miners slowly gained recognition, and safer conditions became law rather than wishful thinking. The scars of the past never fully faded, but Clara's name was whispered among the hills as a symbol of resistance and hope. And in the still mornings when the sun bathed the mountains in gold, the coal dust glinted like tiny stars. Reminders that even in the darkest mines, light could find a way to reach the surface. For more stories, like and subscribe.